Bringing a new puppy into your life is an exciting and joyful experience. One of the most crucial aspects of raising a well-rounded and confident dog is socialization. I'm Sara Ondrako, a certified dog behavior consultant, and this is my Beauceron puppy, Vivace. Vivace is 11 weeks old, and she's gonna help us talk about proper puppy socialization. Socialization refers to the process of helping your puppy develop positive experiences and associations with new things. It also helps them build confidence and to navigate new things, new stimulus with ease and resilience and adaptability. The most important thing to think about is that it doesn't involve necessarily playing with a bunch of other dogs or playing with a bunch of other humans. In fact, it's about exposing them in a controlled and positive environment. A better phrase would be social exposure, because socially exposing them to different sounds and sights and smells helps them develop better social skills and not be scared of new people and new animals as they grow and develop and mature. Most people think of socialization as, I'm gonna let my puppy play with as many other puppies and dogs and people and kids as possible. Unfortunately, that can also be problematic because then your dog becomes very conditioned to seeing and playing and interacting with every other person that they come into contact with or dog they come into contact with, which means you could fade out of the picture pretty quickly, and that can really hurt your training and your bond building. And there is such thing of too much socialization, where it can overwhelm your puppy and cause the exact opposite of what you're trying to do, where they develop a traumatic experience that could stay with them for life. Small, controlled doses. Make sure that it's not overwhelming to where they get really tired and end up having a poor social experience that sticks with them for the rest of their life. So let's talk about some key principles about socialization. The first one being, when should you start socialization? Socialization actually starts at 3 weeks of age and is really critical all the way through about 14 weeks of age. Before you even get your puppy, socialization starts with the breeder or the rescue or the shelter. Oftentimes we get our puppies or our dogs well after that critical period for socialization is over, and that doesn't mean it's a lost cause necessarily, but your dog may respond differently to different environments if they didn't have that critical social exposure early on. If that's the case, you want to expose your dog socially still, but in small, tolerable doses, and pay close attention to how your dog responds to those different environments and new stimulus. You might see some of these different types of signals from your puppy or dog if they're actually in a critical fear period as well. Now, the two critical fear periods that happen are typically between weeks 3 and 5, and then again a second one will happen between ages 3 months and 14 months. Now that's a long span, but they both last about 2 weeks, and there's no way, unfortunately, to predict that second critical fear period, when that 2-week period will be. However, you'll notice that your dog will also start displaying some of those behaviors that we'll talk about in terms of body language to say, I'm scared, or I'm anxious, or I'm a little bit afraid, and we should scale back. Fear periods are completely normal, and every single puppy goes through them. So if your puppy's displaying some signs that they're a little bit more unusually cautious or fearful of things that they might not otherwise be, they might be going through a critical fear period, and it's time to scale back. Don't expose them to new situations or environments that could potentially scare them, because that will last with them for the rest of their life. This is the only time during puppyhood that I recommend you kind of bubble wrap them a little bit and just protect their space until they get through that period and you can start social exposure all over again. Another key principle of proper socialization is controlling those social experiences. And what I mean by that is that you want to slowly introduce things to them at a tolerable level and move at their pace. So for example, if you want to start getting them comfortable in crowds, you start with introducing them to 2 or 3 people or being around 2 or 3 people before you attend Food Truck Friday or your favorite music fest. Another example would be sounds. Slowly introduce your puppy to sounds. So instead of being right in the middle of traffic on a busy rush hour day, you want to be at a distance away, either on a sidewalk or in a grassy area where they can hear and experience those things, not right up close where it's likely to scare them. Another good way to control social exposure would be to back your car into a parking lot at a busy shopping center, and rather than getting out of the vehicle, stay in the vehicle and provide some positive reinforcement through treats or play as your puppy gets to observe and learn without anybody actually interacting or coming into their space. So as you're moving through these different social exposure exercises and activities with your puppy, what you're doing is building confidence in them that new things aren't so scary. In fact, new things can be kind of fun and exciting. So as an owner, how much should you be involved with the learning that's happening during these social exposure periods? Well, you don't want to be overly involved because then they're ignoring the environment and they're not learning, and you want them to observe and see everything. But you do want to add in a little bit of positive reinforcement, and that could mean you're just feeding a couple of their favorite treats, you're having breakfast together while you watch what's going on in the environment, or you're doing a little bit of play. A lot of pet parents get hung up on teaching all of those fun obedience skills like sit and down and heel, but social exposure is really not the time for that. It can push your puppy too much and make training with you less fun when they do want to work at home. So when you are working outside with your puppy on social exposure, try not to make the common mistake that a lot of pet parents make, which is focusing on obedience. That's not the time for this during social exposure. Doing too much skill work like sit and down and heel and all of those fun obedience cues can actually degrade the social exposure experience for your puppy. So when you're doing social exposure and socialization with your puppy, leave the skill work for another time and let the learning be about what's in the environment. So how can you interact with your puppy when you're providing social exposure? You don't want to leave your puppy on their own. You want them to have a good experience. So some examples of what you can do with them is a little bit of play. Bring a tug toy out, tug for a minute, let them go back to observing, or you can throw a treat scatter into the grass or rustle the bushes around to really encourage them to use their nose while things are going in the environment. There's a lot of different things that you can do. You also want to be very aware of your surroundings, especially when it comes to other dogs in the environment. They're not always very friendly, so be careful about the dogs that you allow to approach your puppy. Remember when you're choosing where you're going to go for social exposure and socialization that you are your puppy's comfort and security. So if you're reserved about where you're going or you're anxious about it, try not to overthink it because our puppies can pick up on that too. So if we want our puppies to be confident, especially in new environments, we've got to exude that confidence and be good handlers to them so that we can remain comfort and security for them when they need it most. One of the games that I like to play with my puppy when we're out and about, getting social exposure, looks kind of like this. And what I'm doing is really just rewarding her each time that she's observing the environment and then checking back in with me. This builds the ability for her to focus on me should she start to feel uncomfortable. So notice here you can see my puppy is looking at something in the environment and I want her to observe that. But as soon as she checks back in with me, like, hey mom, did you see that too? I'm gonna offer some positive reinforcement so that she learns to check back in with me regularly when she sees things. That way, if she becomes frightened or scared by anything, the default system is already built for her to use me as her comfort and security and check back in with mom. So you may have heard, if your puppy isn't fully vaccinated, not to take them out anywhere. And this could be really concerning in terms of behavior later on. This can breed reactivity and fear of other animals and other people and new situations. So how do we balance this out? What if my puppy isn't fully vaccinated, but I still want to provide social exposure? Well, there is a balance to it, and it's about providing safe socialization. And what that means is, before your puppy is completely vaccinated, that you're controlling the environments that you have them in. But it is critical that they get out into new environments safely before that critical socialization period ends, or you could end up with a lot of behavior problems on your hands. So how do you provide this safe socialization when they're not completely vaccinated? Well, you might think, I want to bring my puppy to the pet store and pick out new toys. Well, instead of placing them on the ground or in the common areas where other animals defecate and urinate, you can put them in a basket inside of the shopping cart. So they still get the same social exposure. They're just not in direct contact with things that other animals are in direct contact with. Another example would be putting your puppy in a backpack or in a wagon and bringing them along with you, just not leaving them on the ground exposed to other animals and what they've left along the way too. How do you know if things are going well or they might be not having such a great time? You want to pay attention to their body language. Are they up and interested and paying attention with excitement to their environment? Are they checking back with you and including you in what's going on in front of them? Or are they tucking their tail or trying to hide behind you or pinning their ears back? These are all signs that they might not be having such a great time, and it's a good time to scale back, make it a little bit easier for them to win that situation. So if your puppy is really struggling and you've given distance and you're providing positive reinforcement, but they still seem pretty fearful of the situation, it's totally okay to pack up and go home. You want to end on a positive note as much as you can so that the experience that they remember is a good one with you. So if you need to pick them up and love on them for a minute, grab their tug toy, have a little bit of play, and then just abort mission and go home. You can always pick up and start again another day, and I would encourage you to do so, but if they're really struggling and you push them through it, it could make it worse. Dog parks can be excellent socialization for your puppy, but I highly recommend not bringing them in the dog park, but working around the dog park. You can safely expose them to all these different breeds and size dogs and barks and yips and all of these fun sounds that provide great social exposure without causing a potentially traumatic or scary experience for your puppy. The other thing to remember is that a lot of diseases can be communicated through the grass and through the play yards at dog parks, and especially if your puppy is not fully vaccinated, it can be a dangerous place for them to be. So when you're introducing your puppy to friends and family or other family members' dogs that you want them to have a good relationship with, take it slow. I like to make sure that my puppy actually wants to interact with the person or the dog first, and that they choose to go say hello. And if they need a break and they want to come behind me, that I give them that break and I protect their space. An easy way to do slow introductions that your puppy will find safe is to go on a walk together. Take the visiting dog and the visiting friend and your puppy out for a nice little parallel walk and stroll so that they can get to know each other by sight and scent and sound first, which are their primary senses. So that way, when you get back from your walk and all of those jitters and wiggles are out, they're much more likely to have a very positive interaction. I want to talk about one often overlooked but extremely important social exposure experience for your puppy, and that is the vet hospital. Most people don't think of their vet hospital as the place where their puppy is going to go and have fun and love everybody that they get to meet there. But that anxiety is owner related, and you can either transfer that to your puppy because you're concerned about what might happen or how they might feel, or you can make it into a very good experience for them. To have fun visits with your puppy, all you have to do is bring them to the vet several times. Typically, when I first finish puppy vaccines, I'll still bring my puppy back to the vet hospital, whether it's for a sniffari outside or to go get a treat from the front desk girls or to sniff drawers at least once a week for the first 4 weeks. Then I'll bring them back for visits every other week for the next 4 weeks. And then I bring it down to about once a month. Often you can pair their once a month visit for when they're due for heartworm or flea prevention. So they come in, they get their treat, they get to sniff, they have a wonderful experience, and out they go. This really helps avoid a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety and stress that happens with medical practice and handling in the veterinary clinic environment. All of this might sound like a lot. It might be overwhelming at first to take in all of this information and decide how to best socialize your puppy. But the biggest thing is that you do it safely and you have fun while you're doing it as well. Remember that your confidence is going to travel down the leash, so to speak. So you want them to have a good experience, feel confident and comfortable with their handler. So as the handler, you need to be confident for your puppy as well and just provide fun. That's what they're all about anyway. So the more fun they have on social exposure outings with you, the easier it will be for them to have a well-rounded social personality the more that they develop in age. Vivace and I hope you found this helpful and you've gained some excellent insight in how to properly socialize your puppy. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and for more information, be sure to follow us on the Native Pet blog as well.